I have a very unique name. It's very easy to find me. I will just.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have some very notable family in John Snodgrass, right?
Well, we may actually. I mean, there's not a lot of Snodgrasses around, but I don't actually think we're related. But we do have this ongoing joke because
I
he
see.
calls me his uncle, and I'm
Oh,
like, "Come on, dude, I'm not that much older than you. What's with the uncle shit? At least let's go with cousins." So.
Alan, hey, how's it going? Welcome to the Question and the Answers podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing? I will say this is the first time I've seen you without a beard.
Yeah. Most people, as a matter of fact, have seen me with the beard. I mean, this whole COVID-19 shelter-in-place thing has affected us all in many ways.
For most people, it's the opposite, though. They just grow facial hair rather than take it off. So.
Well, yeah, and I think the main reason for me was that the whole situation with wearing a mask and like the facial hair thing. I mean, I just shaves a lot of years off of my face, though. Apparently, so
yeah, you look younger. It's good. I don't know if I would have recognized you if I saw you at a show, but
oh well. I mean, hey, but I mean, I'm probably going to stick with this. To be honest with you, I mean, it's been so long since I've had a beard, or since I mean, I had a beard for many years, but. Now that I'm kind of used to it, I think I might just stick with this. So
it works. It works.
Well, anyway, this is Alan Snodgrass, who is a very well-known photographer. Not only, well, I mean,
I'm not sure about that, but
I think you're well-known.
Keep going. Sounds good.
Anyway, yeah. Anyways, yeah, this is Alan Snodgrass, who is a very prolific, well-known photographer. Covers a ton of live music. I'm sure you've seen his photos from anywhere, from online to in print. And, I thought it'd be really great to have you on here to kind of talk about your experience as a photographer, especially within like the punk scene, the independent music scene, and, just kind of get an idea of what it is to be in your position and how that relates to what we all do and what we see online. Tell me an idea of like what got you interested in doing this kind of work.
Well, first, thanks for having me. I'm not used to being in front of the camera, usually behind the camera, so this is a little bit different for me. I think it actually sounds stupid, but started at an early age. I think I was always, a bit of I like taking pictures when I was a kid, and I started going to punk rock shows, and I got this, it's like a 35, before the days of digital, 35 millimeter, kind of a point and shoot, had a flash, and I started sneaking that into shows and taking pictures. And I developed those in my high school dark room, and I was like, wow, this actually is pretty, it looks like what I saw when I was there. And I think I kind of got the bug that way. And I don't think it ever occurred to me at the time that like there was a job or a career here. I kind of did it for fun and took pictures, up until the point where my camera broke. But I think that's kind of where it started for me, taking concert photography. And it was about maybe 2009 where I didn't have a day job, and I'm like, you know what, I got a bunch of free time, I'm going to take a swing at this. I connected with a music website, and they're like, yeah, sure, if you want to cover shows for us, start doing it. And I kind of got back into it that way. The website was kind of, it was run out of Las Vegas, and not, they kind of had their certain things. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to start kind of figuring out how I can do what I want to do, but with a little bit more kind of independence, meaning less dependent upon what this particular guy who runs this website wants to do. And kind of started my own thing, made contacts, and kind of moved on from there. A lot of it is relationship based, and getting to know the publicists and the bands, and having an outlet is quite important. But there's been a few lucky breaks along the way. I mean, it sounds kind of stupid, but as I was, I can't remember what year it was, but I was shooting Good Riddance at the old Uptown nightclub in Oakland before they moved, so go back a ways. And I think at that point in time, I had a bit of a relationship with Fat Records, and that's probably how I got in. And this guy comes up to me, he's like, "Hey, I kind of run these magazines. Do you want to come, shoot for us?" And he introduced me to the editor at the time, Lisa. And the magazines, he had two magazines. One was called AMP and the other was called Ales and Horns, and his name was Brett. And unfortunately, they folded shop within like 3 months of me getting in contact with him. The great thing was that Lisa went on to form New Noise magazine, who I've been, shooting with since, kind of the beginning, basically. Lisa's been awesome, huge fan of what New Noise magazine, I'm sure you know them, kind of being local, but yeah, I mean, that's, as they say, the rest was history.
No, that's awesome. I've had the pleasure of knowing several people that are pretty consistently doing this type of work as well. Like I know Matt Cotty, and then my friend Lorian, who lives out in the Baltimore area. She's pretty involved out there. But I'm always just fascinated by the skill that it takes to really be a good photographer for like live music, because when you're dealing with like a band, especially like an energetic band, like say Good Riddance or something like that, they're moving around, and like you have to have the right equipment, you have to have patience, you have to kind of, I think, really have an understanding of the music, and you have to be a fan in order to kind of be able to anticipate like movements and stuff like that. Because when you're trying to capture something live and really catch the essence of the band, it can't just be like a quick, okay, click, 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 right? I mean, there's definitely a lot of skill involved. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think actually that's a great question, because as someone that goes out and take pictures, I think one of the compliments I get is, that looks like a great show. And so taking something that's very visual, people are moving and there's music playing, and you can kind of distill it to something that's a frame, and someone can kind of get a view of what that show was like. That's pretty cool. And I think that's what kind of first got the bug in me back when I was, taking pictures of Black Flag back in 1983 or 4 or whatever it was, a long time ago. And I think that you mentioned the equipment. I think kind of the circumstances you're shooting shows are quite different, and where you might find in kind of landscape photography, or you're more other types of photography, equipment isn't as important. It's actually quite important in concert photography. You need kind of fast lenses. You're shooting at a high ISO. You keep the shutter speed up, and that's certainly one factor. I think kind of being able to know where to stand, where to position yourself, and know how to read the band is also quite important as well to get the shot. And kind of knowing how people in the band move. So I think that is probably more having seen them live than knowing the songs themselves. In fact, oftentimes I couldn't even tell you what song they're playing when I'm kind of like shooting, and I'm not necessarily, you're like focusing on getting the shot, not necessarily knowing, like listen to the song. Not always, but and you kind of learn some of the moves. I hate to say that, but everyone's got the moves.
Well, yeah.
Andy, you've got moves. I know you. I know your moves.
Yeah.
But everyone's got the moves, and so when you talk about how'd you get the jump shot, or there's often tells, believe it or not. And so like a guy like Greg Hetson, for example, he played Bad Religion and Circle Jerks. He does he'll do something right before he's about to jump, and you can kind of see it coming. I think there's always luck involved, believe it or not. And even some bands, I'm just not. I've seen them, shot them a bunch of times, and I never know when that moment's going to come. And luckily I'll get it a lot. Like like the Bomb Pops, for example. For whatever, like you'll get Jen, who will do a jump, maybe one, like a big spread eagle once a set, and for some reason I'm like, that is luck, because I never know when she's going to do it. And then there's other instances where you miss the shot. In fact, I think it was at Fest last year, and I was shooting the Bomb Pops, and I was right in front of Polly, and she saw me, and she kind of did this really big high kick with her leg way up in the air, and my camera wasn't even up. I just totally missed the shot, and I look at her, I'm like you got to do that again, and she did it. I got it the second time, but you don't always have that luxury, I guess, to try to get the shot. And then to your other point, I think just being in music photography in general, you gotta love the music, because to be honest with you, if there was like one piece of advice that I would give someone who wants to get into concert photography, it's don't quit your day job.
Right.
And so, if you're not into the music, why do it? What's the point? And I think when I'd go to a lot of shows, and there's something to be said for kind of changing up the experience as a fan and as a concert goer, and it kind of moved on from there. I'm not a fan of every band I shoot. I try to kind of keep it within the things that interest me and make me enthusiastic about the set and shooting it. But kind of going from it definitely kind of changed up the experience for me, going from the audience to maybe in front of the barricade if there is one.
Sure. Yeah, because I mean, I've seen you at shows that I've been to where it was like
we see each other a lot of shows, Andy.
Well, yeah, and I remember distinctly seeing you at that Our Lady Peace live and Bush show.
Oh, okay.
Out of the Concord.
I don't even remember seeing you there. So
yeah, because I saw you walking down into the media pit, and I was like, oh, that's Alan. Nice. And I mean, was that like a paid gig that you were doing for another like magazine here, or were you just doing that for fun, or?
I think that one. So I actually have two main outlets I shoot for, or maybe call it three. But in addition to New Noise magazine, I mean, obviously, Bush doesn't fall in the typical genre of New Noise magazine. But I also shoot for a site out of DC called the Vinyl District. Great guy that runs it. Very, not surprisingly, kind of music oriented, also very vinyl oriented. So photography and concert reviews are a portion of what they do, but certainly not the only thing. It's very kind of, and I say this in the most respectful way possible, but it's very kind of vinyl geeky. It's a cool site. So check out the Vinyl District. And I probably shot that show for them.
Okay. And you mentioned not quitting your day job, which I think is probably very sound advice for anyone in like the music business right now. Well, I mean, just in general, because there's no money in music, not anymore. But you do this, and so the typical way that would work is that you get paid by the number of photos that are used. Is that usually how it goes, or?
No. I mean, I think I kind of view shooting the live shows as a means to an end. I mean, live photographs are very much a commodity these days, and the economics of shooting kind of live punk music is worse than the economics of playing in a punk rock band.
Okay.
If that can kind of bring things in perspective for you. So just when kind of the online stuff is typically free. I mean, when I do get paid, and it's not every show, but it's through the relationships that I built, and with the labels. And so Fat Records wants to do some promo shots. Pirates Press wants to do some promo shots. That's the way I get paid for the most part. And I think I was on this kick. I haven't done it lately, but really kind of pursuing more of the kind of higher end publications, Rolling Stone, and kind of submitting photos to them, and trying to get through that way. And I kind of got my photo in Rolling Stone, and I'm like, oh, I think I'm done. I did it. It was kind of a pain in the ass. It wasn't as much money as you might think.
Okay.
I've had photos in Kerrang. I mean, like real kind of magazines, and like I said, don't quit your day job.
Well, do you think that this is the type of work that you would do full time if you could get paid consistently for it? I mean,
it's a bit of a catch-22,
right?
So I think the easy answer is, hey, if I could get paid, can I make what I make on my day job doing this? Would I do it or not? I think that the simple answer is, well, yes. But I know folks, that I shoot shows with all the time that have been doing it for literally decades. They shoot for wire services. I mean, they and come as close to making a living doing it as possible. And it gets harder and harder over time as kind of media, gets crunched. But once you do that, you find yourself taking pictures of things for the money, not because you're necessarily a fan of the music, right?
Right.
And so no offense, if I wanted to make money, I wouldn't be taking pictures of Tsunami Bomb every time you guys play. It's the arena shows, it's the Lady Gagas and the Taylor Swifts and the hip hop artists and the country artists, and that is not of no interest to me.
Got it.
And I would much prefer to, go to a, dirty, sweaty punk rock show at, Eli's and stand up front and get bumped around and, like kind of get into the moment in a way that you can never do at a show, that's an arena or, like that, So it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be really good. And, much like, the top, sliver of bands that can make a living doing it, the same thing is true with photographers. And, you can do it. I think the folks that, the photographers that can actually, that get closest to making a living might be touring photographers. And so, they'll just kind of go out band after band after band. And that, your costs at home are quite low because, you're always on the road. And you can make a living doing that for sure. But it comes with a price, meaning, I got a family. I don't think my wife would be super stoked if I was on the road for, 8 months a year. Much like being in a band.
Right.
So, there's some trade-offs that me personally, not in a time of my life for me to do, but, people do it. And I know folks that have been quite successful at that as well. So.
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned Matt Cotty earlier. I know that he kind of has his aesthetic, he does a lot of black and white stuff. Would you say that you have a particular aesthetic that you work
I don't know,
with?
I was been kind of thinking of you, one of the questions is like, who kind of influences you? I would say when I started my, my aesthetic was limited by my ability. I don't know. Do I? You tell me. You see my stuff. Well, I mean, there's a way. Let me just put it this way. There's a way I do things, and I think I don't do a lot of black and white. I'm kind of bold in your face. I like to recreate, what you see. I love Matt's work. It's just very different than mine.
Right.
I admire it. It's just different. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think what I like about your photography is just that it really does kind of capture the essence of the show and the night of that show. And I think that that's a really important element that anyone who's doing your type of work as a part of the entire machine, that is the music scene. It kind of helps to elevate the vibe and like the energy, and it allows for people that weren't there to get an idea of what that night was like,
Yeah. And that's what I'm going for.
Right. And I, for so long, especially like pre-internet, when there were like zines being put together by hand and like people like doing Xeroxes and like having to like do their own film development and everything like that, and not getting it into the big publications, that was an important piece of this, and that still happens. But a person like yourself or like a Matt Cotty who's going to lots of shows, who's broadcasting it on their channels, either internet or social media or like whatever, and then allowing that to be an extension of that night, kind of not only allows those artists to reach a bigger audience, but it also allows you the opportunity to be a little bit more creative and like, take chances with like your photography and I don't know, like be involved, Yeah.
I get it. I actually like the zine analogy because, me growing up, I mean, I'm a lot older than you. So I started going to shows in the early 80s
Mm-hmm.
in LA. And you like literally how you would find out about shows back then was you would every Thursday we go pick up the LA Weekly and you kind of flip on who's playing, at shows. You pick up flyers handed out at shows you did go to. And you'd read the zines, and so, Maximum Rock and Roll is obviously the big one up here. We got it in LA. Flipside was a great one that was based in LA. And so I think that's a little bit kind of the genetics that I come from, so to really, kind of get the word out or, kind of expose people to what's going on.
Sure. Well, and prior to there being like little, Instagram stories or, Instagram videos or YouTube videos of virtually every angle from every show, we relied so heavily on people doing photography. And I think that that's still completely 100% like important.
Is it
And
though? Because everyone's got a cell phone. Everyone, like people are they got the phones up, streaming the show live from from the show.
well, but I would say that it's important, as somebody who's in a band, to make sure that somebody such as yourself is actually got more of a skill of capturing what we are all about as a band, right? Because, dickhead Kevin, who's in the pit and keeping his,
Fucking
phone,
hate that guy.
it's actually kind of annoying, and, it's not to say that nobody doesn't have the right to like take a photo or something like that, but it really is like a problem. Like in my opinion, to have all those people in the crowd videotaping the entire thing, taking all these photos and then broadcasting that stuff. And I don't, I personally don't care if a person takes a photo and then shares it. That's fine. But if you're just constantly like streaming the whole thing or something like that, you're not really there to enjoy the show. I
Yeah.
mean, that's where a person like you comes in. It's like you're being hired to do this and you're a professional at this, So
Yeah, and actually, I mean, it's kind of interesting. I mean, I kind of, I watch what people are doing in the crowd because, I think, I'm coming in as call it an impartial observer. And if I'm writing a review of a show, in many ways, it doesn't matter what I think. What matters is what's going on between the people on the stage and the people that are in the audience. And that's what makes the show good or bad, not whatever I think, to be honest with you. And so I actually spend time thinking of, like, I watch the crowd and, what's going on in there. And a show which is just so amazing and no one's got their phones up is like kind of like it's a very unusual kind of occurrence these days. And I think I remember sitting. It was at the Fillmore here in San Francisco, and Chris Cornell was playing up. Obviously, a couple of years ago, he was doing a solo show, and like not a single phone in the air. And this guy was just like one of the most amazing vocalists and the performers out there. It was him, a bunch of guitars. There's a phone on the stage. I won't, say why, and people just were just soaking it in. And when people are enjoying a show that much that it doesn't even occur to them to like pick up their phone and take a video, that's a great show from my perspective.
Yeah,
about some guy like me taking pictures. No.
Well, I couldn't agree more. It's like, like if you are hired by either Chris Cornell or the Fillmore or the promoter or the label to come in and take the photos for the evening, I mean, that's your job for the night, right? And you do have a little bit of a more of a skill set and the right equipment, and you understand like the building, and you know how to adjust with lighting, like all those things, right? And everyone else in the audience, like as much as they have a right to capture that moment, like for their own, memory lane, like trip down like years later. I genuinely feel like people need to put their phones away more, and
as a fan,
yeah,
like maybe I'll sometimes I do go to shows without a camera, believe it or not, or just, watch, but maybe do a little clip or something like that. But watching the show through the back of my phone is just, why did I buy a ticket for that? Or,
right.
What's the point?
Like what do you, not to get too off track, but like, what do you think about some of the policies that, obviously this is pre-COVID-19, but, it seemed like more and more there was becoming especially with like some of these more expensive shows, like I know with Jack White was doing it, where he would, give you that little pouch, and like you had to put your cell phone in the pouch, and you could only open it if you had like an emergency, or if you had to like you had to like leave the actual venue, to be outside to use it for any reason. Like, do you agree with that system? Do you think that that's something that should be done more often?
It doesn't bother me. I mean, even as a photographer, you're kind of presented with certain rules. Like Jack White, for example, I don't think he allows photographers at all.
Oh,
so,
okay.
So it's not surprising to me as an example that he would say, I don't want phones in there. It's, I think from that perspective, it's the artist's prerogative. Much like the Misfits, reunion shows were the same way.
Right.
At least at the beginning, I think they kind of gave up on the pouches after a while, just because people were ripping them over and ripping them open and taking the cameras, their phones out anyways. And I saw a couple kind of later in the tour, and they had, they didn't even bother trying. But I get it from our perspective that there's let me put it this way, there's a bit of an entitlement on the part of the audience's perspective, which is, I'm here, I paid money here, I should be able to take a picture or video, whatever. And if an artist doesn't believe that, it represents them well for whatever reason, then they have a right to say, don't do that. I think where things get complicated is when, you get a guy like Danzig on stage and someone's taking his picture and he's like, I'm gonna fucking kill you. And then, and get people kicked out. I mean, that's, that's not a way to build your fan base. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. One of the things that I know was becoming such an issue with, I know comedians was, they would go on stage, and then, comedians spend so much time workshopping, new material. And so by the time that they have got the material to where they want it, it's already out there, so it's no longer new. So I don't know. I mean, it does kind of bring up a lot of interesting questions and like challenges around that whole thing. Because like I said, if you come to the show, if you take a quick photo or like a 30-second video or even like a minute-long video, that's fine, but just don't sit there literally the entire show and keep your phone up.
And there are people that do that.
Like there's people like you who are doing that work, and it will be out there, and you can look up on Google. It's like, like the night at the Fillmore or something like that. And it's like, oh yeah, there's photos by Alan Snodgrass who did these great great photos. So I don't know. So quick question. I'm sorry.
It's a complex issue.
Yeah.
I'll just kind of maybe just close it out by saying, I think that, being respectful of the people that are there and the band, and, is kind of part of the experience. And, when I go in to shoot a show, sometimes there's a barricade, sometimes there's not. I'm tall, I'm in people's way. I try to be as unobtrusive as possible, just because, it's like, typically I don't pay to go to the shows, and someone did, and I'm there to kind of do my thing and not ruin their thing, kind of, and I would hope that people that also buy tickets would have the similar respect for the other people that buy tickets that are around them. And it's not always the case. It's kind of, certain people feel entitled that, hey, I paid the money, I'm going to do what I want.
Yeah. But so I'm curious about, like, over the years doing this type of work, what are some things that you kind of have really keyed in on as like huge learning experiences? Like, is there anything like tricks of the trade that you maybe, weren't as adept to earlier on that you found have made your work better,
Yeah, I think, we kind of talked about the equipment thing, and it's pretty specialized from a photography perspective. And so, I think you just kind of got to be used to that. We talked a little bit about, being able to read the band, what's going on stage, and prepared to react to that. I think not chasing the shot is actually an interesting tip I would give people, because you figure you've got 4 or 5, sometimes more band members on stage, and you see stuff going on, and I missed a jump over here, I missed something over there, and by the time you saw it, it's gone. Mm-hmm. And so trying to run over after the fact and get something is you know, generally not a great approach. And so, focus on getting what you need of what you're focusing on as opposed to chasing that. I think that what anyone getting into this might not understand is the relationship piece is super, super important. And from a publicist perspective, from a band perspective, from a label perspective, from a fellow photographer perspective, don't be an asshole. People know if you're an asshole, and it gets around. And be easy to work with. Be accommodating, and don't act like a paparazzi, and just kind of read the situation and make sure you're not being the Punisher with the camera, which is almost it's kind of the band's worst nightmare. And I'm fortunate enough to be frequently, not always, but frequently kind of put in positions where I see a lot of things that other people don't see, or kind of in situations that other people might not be put in, with bands backstage, those sorts of things, and don't ruin it for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty. I mean, that's common sense. You'd hope would be common sense. But.
I will say, you get your first photo pass, and it's exciting. You're like, hey, I'm up front. Everyone else is back there. The band's right there. They're so close. I can, untie their shoe if I wanted to, or kick them in the nuts, punch them in the nuts if I wanted to.
Yeah.
And people, there's a bit of rush that comes with that, and you just can't do stupid shit. I don't know how else to say it.
No, sure. I think anyone, who gets put in that position for especially the first couple times, it like a little adrenaline rush, and you're just like, oh, I'm backstage. This is awesome. Like I get to hang out with the crew and catering and all that stuff. And I'm right there. The stage is right here. What's up?
I was catering. What?
What's catering?
The funny thing is people are like, backstage. Wow. And you kind of get back, there's people just sitting there relaxing and getting ready for the show, or they're all sweaty after a show. It's actually not that much that goes on. They want to go home. They want to relax. It's totally. Not the, it's probably not what people think it is. Certainly not what it used to be back in the glory days of rock and roll, for sure.
You as a photographer are part of what creates that illusion, of it being.
You see what I want you to see.
Exactly.
And that actually is an illusion. I can make dirty secret. I can make the show look like whatever you want or whatever I want. I can make it look like the worst show ever.
Right.
That's not, it's not what I want. It's not what, I got into it doing, but there's a filter that a photographer will apply to the show to create what you see.
Right.
And it may be 10 photos, 20 photos out of 200 photos or more that they've taken. And just that process to get from all those snaps to the 20 you see kind of frames what, it frames what the photographer wants you to see, which is kind of an interesting, people don't think about that, but it's actually a lot of what I do through the editing process is what story is it? What do I want people to know about it?
Totally. And, just something that even I can relate to, there's been shows of tsunami bombs that you have photographed. And, if somebody wasn't there and we're, those photos go up for a review and they get included in a recap of the show, the recap might sound like, okay, yeah, it's a great show. And these photos hopefully paint that picture with visuals, and, that's kind of where that relationship thing, really comes into play, because, we are trusting that you are going to capture us in those moments that kind of help to elevate the story of that was a great show, because, we all want every show to be a great show, and sometimes they aren't, and sometimes they are. But when it is good, we definitely want people to see why it was good, and not just read about it, So that's, I mean, it's great when you are able to find those brief little seconds and capture it, and then say, oh, dude, yeah, Tsunami Bomb looks like they're having a great fucking time, and they were killing it that night, and or whichever band. Speaking of capturing those moments, who are some bands that you've just had a really great time capturing over the years? Like bands that you
Oh
just find
man,
have been like some of the best,
I mean, it's hard to choose. I mean, I figure, over the last 10 years, I've been shooting 10 shows a month. So, it's well over 1,000 shows. I think the ones that stick with me are the ones that are, believe it or not, the ones where I'm kind of like in the thick of it, just a great show, no barricade. And I'm, kind of up front, getting some pictures, and they're as much of a fan as I am as someone trying to kind of document what's going on. And, look at, this year actually started out great, believe it or not. But, I think, the Adolescents came up with Pennywise. They did a show in Santa Cruz and played the UC. And, I think the night that they're playing in Berkeley, I wanted to go catch Charger at the Golden Bowl. Ah, you got the shirt, yeah. So,
yeah. I think I saw you at that show.
I was, well, so the story. So I'm like, okay, I'll shoot the Adolescents and Pennywise, mostly the Adolescents, down in Santa Cruz, and then the next night I'll go see Charger at the Golden Bowl. And the Adolescents in Santa Cruz were probably the best time I've seen them since Steve Soto passed. Like, just an amazing show. And I was like, shit, I got to do this tomorrow. And so, so I'm like, hey, so I lined up to shoot the Adolescents in Berkeley, and then ran over to catch Charger at Eli's and skip Pennywise. Just like that's the type of thing that kind of gets me inspired. Believe it or not, when Lars Frederiksen played at Eli's, he did like a solo thing. Did you hear that one?
No, but I did see some of the photos and footage.
Yeah, so he was, I can't remember, he was supposed to go to the East Coast, and he was opening for, I'm going to say Bouncing Souls, but I'm not like 100% sure. I think that might be a good guess. We'll say Bouncing Souls unless someone chimes in on your comments and say I was completely bullshit. And so he did his first solo show ever at Eli's. Place was packed. Mm-hmm. And literally, it was two mics on stage, his Marshall Stack. And he just got up there and played his electric guitar and sang, and then he kind of had some guests come out. Fantastic, like literally, probably my favorite show this year. And going in, I'm like, I don't know what who knows what it could suck, it could be great, and it was fantastic. Great show. The Drowns. I don't know if the Drowns yet, but yeah. Their last record's fantastic. Mm-hmm. Great guys. They played. My dates are fading a little bit, but they played DNA Lounge. Kind of came back and played Pirates Press Records, kind of in the kitchen there. Always a great show. There's always great stuff going on. I mean, Punk Rock Bowling for me is a highlight every year. Unfortunately, that obviously isn't happening, but they put on like you've been there. They put on just a great festival. Like, there's always surprises and bands, and it's one of these things where you're literally going from noon to 2, 3, 4 a.m. every day, and it's just great fun. So, and again, it's kind of me, like, what makes it fun for me is great music. I'm out there taking photos. Usually there's friends involved. I'm fortunate I can, go to pretty much any show around the Bay Area, and I, know people pretty well, either, in the photo pit or, taking pictures or, in the crowd. So, those are the things that, kind of things that I really kind of enjoy.
Yeah. Are there any, I'm not going to ask you if there's any bands that, you've had a negative experience with, because I don't want you to name names or anything, but are there any like venues that have been like hard to shoot in that you would rather not shoot in if you could help it?
I think, I will say that, there's always kind of the how would I say it? The things that come with shooting shows, which is, hey, sometimes your pass isn't at the door, you got to deal with that. Sometimes there's certain rules that, that the bands have or the venues have that you may or may not like, but, ultimately you kind of know about those ahead of time, and you make a decision whether you want to do it or not. I think that some venues have better lighting than others, and you usually know that going in. Some don't have a barricade, so I think generally, you can kind of make your own decisions before you commit to you going off and shooting. So, what, I think the negative experiences that I have that are, that I'm not prepared for because of all the things I just said, usually are from the crowd.
Okay.
Like, there's just like, I don't know what it is. Like, you're a guy with a camera and you're in the crowd. You get attracted, like drunk people come to you with their beers sloshing around. And it's just, that's the piece that you can't predict or can't control. And there's a certain demographic, and I'm gonna I'll say what it is, but there's kind of these 40 somethings that don't get out to shows much, and there's some band that they want to see that kind of brings them back to their youth, and they get really drunk and they just don't know how to behave at shows. And for me, that's the worst. And I've seen it at the Cult at the Warfield, and I remember I was shooting Devo at the Fillmore, and there's no barricade. I'm like, like, all right, whatever. I got to shoot from the crowd, and there's this guy, and so I'm kind of not like right up against the stage, but maybe 4 people back, and I get there early so I can get a spot, and again, try not to ruin everyone's bum out anyone around me, and be disruptive. And this guy was just super drunk. He's got this giant beer, and it's full, and he comes up to me, and he's like wobbling, and the beer sloshing. I don't need beer sloshed on me. I'm cool. And so, I'm like, I can move, and I scoot over a little bit just to get away from the sloshing beer. Guy drinks his beer, and then, the waitress comes kind of around. There's enough, and it's like, hey, can I? She brings him another beer, and he didn't have any money.
Oh.
And the guy's like face just dropped, like he was just gonna he looked like he was gonna go on a roid rage. Just big guy, and looked like he was a good old boy. I don't know how else to say it, but big guy. He looks like he was gonna freak out, and I was like, oh shit, like something's gonna happen right next to me. I don't want that to happen. And this guy was like, hey man, let me get your beer. And I was like, woo. So he got his beer. I'm gonna stand over here. You enjoy your beer over there. But other than that, I think most things are either expected or predicted.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. I mean, I'm sure that every venue has its own set of challenges. Like either one is like too dark, or it doesn't have very good lighting, or like you said, it doesn't have like the proper barricade. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that with a lot of like the bigger shows that you do, oftentimes don't they kind of give you like the first like 3 songs to?
Yeah, I mean the general rule is 3 songs from the barricade, and then you're done. And so that's kind of the general rule of thumb. I don't know why it exists or why everyone seems to have adopted it, but that's kind of what you got to be prepared for those shows, which is I got limited time, I got to get what I got to get, and then move on. Some venues are pretty strict about allowing you to have a camera in the venue after that, so you might need to kind of leave or check it somewhere. You don't want to leave it in your car here in the Bay Area, because then you will have no camera.
That's correct.
And so there's that. The smaller, actually, even sometimes when there's not a barricade. I think I was at Slim's last year, and I was shooting the horror pops. And how Slim's has that the movie screen that comes down.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't quite sure. I couldn't see where the mics were. So you want to stand with a mic right in front of you, because it blocks most of your shots. So usually I set up by the pole. There's a pole. There are a couple of poles blocking the stage. They're usually set up there because crowd surfers won't jump on you if there's a pole right next to you. Little tip of the trade. And it turns, so the curtain goes up, and I'm like right in front of the singer's microphone. And apparently they had a policy, no barricade, but I was like kind of crammed up there. And I see her like after 3 songs, she looks down at me, looks over at whoever her guy was, and like points at me. And the guy came over and was like, hey, you got to stop shooting, which is fine. But different rules for different folks. That Lars show at the Eli's, I'm like, Eli's doesn't give a shit. Gilman, you can pretty much do whatever you want there for shows. So kind of go with the flow and just expect that certain bands are going to feel different ways about having photographers and how much time they have there, and they've got their reasons. And as a photographer, I respect the reasons.
Mm-hmm. One thing I wanted to ask you in regards to like the credit that gets attributed to you as the photographer. I know that that's something that can be kind of a bit of a sore subject for photographers.
Because you guys posted a photo saying photographer unknown. Was that you, Andy?
No, it was not.
I was giving you a hard time, by the way. I was like, really? Like, who
no, I
else
know.
was it?
No, I know. That's why I immediately got it. I was like, oh shit, was that your photo? Sorry, but no, I mean, but really, like, that is something that I think any publication or band should absolutely be concerned about, because you as the photographer, if it's your photo, like, you should get credit for it. I mean, has it ever been something where you've had to like really like, pursue like any like legal action or anything like that? I mean,
I mean,
it's a matter of getting paid.
I think the economics of pursuing legal action don't make any sense
Sure.
for this type of thing. Publications are always very good about giving credit. Usually it's the bands that may or may not make the effort. Social media, like I would say, hey, just tag me, and usually I'm pretty cool with that. I did. I don't know if I should name the artist, but I did get into it with one artist, and I'll say it was a woman, and she had actually reached out to me and said, "Hey, did you take this picture?" And I was like, "Yeah, I took that picture." She's like, "I would like to use it for blah blah blah," and I was like, "Well, and I'm like, hey, can you throw me a couple bucks?" And it was not a lot of money, like not a lot of money at all. And
Okay.
she kind of got like really weird about it. And so she's like, I don't have that kind of money. Like, I don't know if she thought I was going to sue her, which, like, again, doesn't make any sense, but she got really weird about it. And I was like, just don't use it. I mean, don't use it. I'm not asking for any money. Just don't use it. And then she ended up, I don't know, it was 6 months later, she ended up using it. And I'm like, what the fuck? And so I sent her a message, and this is just like all through Facebook Messenger. And I'm like, hey, what the fuck? And she's like, I had no idea what I was talking about. I'm like, read up this thread, like, just scroll. and then she like started to freak out. And then she's like, oh, us artists need to be supporting each other. I'm like, okay, that's cool. So how are you supporting me by like just taking this picture and just posting it without any credit or anything? Anyways, it was.
Yeah, that's
ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
You would recognize, and it was just like, ooh, like I don't want to get into, like, I don't need to get into that. I don't want to get into it. I think the respecting the other artist is, hey, like, ask for their permission. It's not a big deal, and people know how to find me. And I don't know if I ever withheld, I said, hey, what the fuck are you doing?
No,
bomb or
Sure. No, I mean, well, and like, for instance, with that photo, like, the story behind that was legitimately that a friend found the photo, and then it kind of got brought to one of our attention. And it's like, oh yeah, like, we had never seen this one before. And I think what it was just that we hadn't seen it for a while. You
guys need to read New Noise magazine. Plug.
No, we love New Noise, but New Noise and Lisa, great. But yeah, like, we posted the photo, I think, just not really remembering that it was a photo that you had taken. And then all it took was
I was like, literally, it was a joke on my side. I wasn't like, like.
Well, but I'm just trying to emphasize the point of what it is that I'm talking about. It's like, it's so ironic that that person, said, oh, well, we as artists have to support each other, when it's like, but you're not supporting me. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like,
and that point was totally lost on her.
Right.
Like,
and
seriously, is that how you?
So really, I think that, I mean, all it is that I'm trying to say is that if you're in a band or a performer of any kind, and a person like Alan takes your photo and you want to use it, definitely give the person credit, and ask for permission, and don't.
I mean, I get a couple followers out of that's cool. I mean, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's a courtesy, if anything. you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, I will say there's probably some people out there that will go after an artist for doing that. I said, I don't try to make if I was trying to make a living with it, I might think differently about it. But, I mean, sometimes photos will get, like, I think over the last month, like the bass player for AFI had posted a photo, and they tagged me, and it was like, and I was like, oh, I forgot I took that picture. That's a great picture. I'm glad he posted that. The Go-Go's picked something up like maybe a month and a half ago. I'm like, oh, they got it right. Like, cool.
Well,
good for them.
Yeah, I mean, and it's really not that complicated. It's just a matter of saying, okay, like this is a photo taken by this person.
I have a very unique name. It's very easy to find me. I will just.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have some very notable family in John Snodgrass, right?
Well, we may actually. I mean, there's not a lot of Snodgrasses around, but I don't actually think we're related. But we do have this ongoing joke because he calls me his uncle, and I'm like, come on, dude, I'm not that much older than you. What's with the uncle shit? At least let's go with cousins. So like he'll post like my uncle Alan, and I'll be like, come on, dude, my cousin John. So it's like this little back and forth thing, but it's all good fun.
Have you ever like been a photographer for his live sets at all?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, we've met in person. I mean, I've had this, I've had this conversation with him in person. I'm sure, but yeah, I'm pretty sure I have. Yeah. I'm going to say the Parkside, but don't quote me on that.
But I mean, no,
I said it, so it's been quoted. But
I mean, because it is a, I guess, a pretty peculiar last name. I mean, I personally have never met anyone with the last name Snodgrass except for you, and then there's John, and then
maybe we are related.
Maybe you are.
Maybe John do the ancestry thing. We'll figure out how far back it goes.
There you go. Well, hey, I wanted to, this is something that I ask everyone that comes on. I wanted to find out who are some bands that you've been paying attention to, either bands from long ago or current bands that people may not be that aware of that you think they should be aware of.
Wow, that's a great question. I kind of look at bands that stick with me, and and maybe straying away from bands that other people might know. Charger, you're wearing the shirt, so obviously you know them. But as a band, they're pretty new, and they haven't gotten out beyond the West Coast much. And anyone that likes Motorhead will love Charger. There's a guy named Matt Freeman who plays bass in that band, and I think the cool thing about it is you get a lot of Matt Freeman that you probably don't see in Rancid, which is one of the things I like about it. It's like, hey, Matt, what's up with that wah pedal? How come you don't play the wah in Rancid? He's like, oh, they won't let me. So, great band. The Drowns, if you guys don't know the Drowns, check out the Drowns, based out of Seattle. A couple guys from Success who've been around, but their new record that's out on Pirate Press called Under Tension is fantastic. And I'm not just saying that because I have a photo on the insert. But have you seen them, Andy, the Drowns?
I have not seen the Drowns live, no.
Oh, man. Hopefully soon.
Hopefully soon. Yeah.
Just a great record, great bunch of guys, and just fantastic live. I mean, huge fan. And then, Western Addiction is one of those bands, like, I feel like they're so underrated. I don't know why that is. They're out in Fat Records, and they're like the kind of the square peg in the Fat Records round hole. They don't really fit well with the kind of the Fat Wreck sound, just because they're super heavy. But man, they're good. They're good.
Yeah,
and I'll say that Tremulous, which came out 3 years ago, definitely my favorite record of the year. Frail Bray came out earlier this year. Super good. Great guys. I mean, you've probably seen them, but
I have. Yeah,
I feel like they've got so much, like headroom in that band. Just so good. And I love a band that there's a couple of bands like this, but like you've got like a really quality musicians that will just kind of hold it down no matter what happens on stage. They'll keep playing. And Jason's out in the crowd, and he's on people's shoulders and on bars and doing crazy shit, and the band will not miss a beat.
Mm-hmm.
I love that in a band, just because.
You know who's great like that too is the Bronx.
That's my other example. Yeah,
Yeah.
Like Matt will be out in the crowd. Like, were you there when they did, like, have you been to their Christmas shows at Slim's? They did like, it was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And they did 2 nights, one night Mariachi El Bronx, one night the Bronx. Matt comes out during the Bronx night wearing a Santa suit. And second song, hops off the stage and did the whole set in the crowd. Basically the whole set in the crowd.
That's awesome.
It was like literally one of the best shows I've seen.
Yeah. Dude, for my money, the Bronx is easily one of the best live bands I've ever seen. Like,
huge fan, but you kind of nail it. They're like one of those bands, like the guys on stage were just like
rock
stone
solid.
face. Yeah. Like, and just rocking out. They don't even look at Matt. Nope. They don't even look at him. And he's doing all kinds of shit. I love it.
Yeah.
And in many ways, Western Addiction's the same way.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I saw Western Addiction at the Ivy Room in Albany.
I might have been there.
Yeah, I mean, you very well may have been there. I can't remember, but that was a great show. And seriously, like, same idea. Singer goes out there, just kind of does his thing, and then the rest of the band is just, we're holding it down. We're gonna let him do his thing.
Yep. Yeah, and I think, I mean, I don't know what it is about that, but just like, it's kind of like the structure and then the chaos. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, it's a train. It's moving, and whatever you do, that train will not stop moving. Even if the singer is, kind of lying on the, ground bleeding, they will not stop. I'm pretty sure.
Well, and it particularly like gives a person like yourself, a lot of good, stuff to photograph.
Yeah.
It makes the show a lot more interesting, Yeah.
And they played, like when the Bronx played Fest last year down in Florida. You guys were there. Did you see that set?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Matt's got his, his mic cord, you coil up on stage. So it's going to happen. And, it was one of those first 3 songs and out. And, I'm like, I know in the band, Matt's going to be in the pit here, within, a couple minutes. And, I was the first photographer that was like in the pit. They're kind of like, I think other folks realized he wasn't coming back for the stage. So they're like, all right, we'll come out here too. But, yeah, that's they're great. And then even like Cadillac Tramps. I mean, the late Gabby. They played Punk Rock Bowling 5 years ago, and they're playing backyard, the Triple B backyard backstage bar and billiards. And there was actually a barricade. I was up there shooting, and Gabby's such a ham on stage, or was such a ham on stage. He's always, I think I was the only one shooting, and he was like doing all these poses on the, for the camera. And I think I was shooting maybe like Johnny Two Bags, and I hear this splat. And I look down, and Gabby is on his back, looking up at me. He had fallen off the stage, not a tall stage, but he was like literally flat on his back at my feet. The band didn't flinch, like didn't even move. Like, if you fell off the stage, would your band stop? I don't know. Maybe. Would they?
I actually did. So it's funny. Like, quick story. Like in Las Vegas, I tried to do like a hop with my guitar, and I think it was because I was kind of sick. I was getting over being sick, and when I fell, I just didn't land correctly, and I actually did fall, on the stage. But I got up like super fast, and the band didn't stop though. Did
they notice you were gone? Were they like, "Oh, where's Andy?"
Well, I remember Dom like looked, he's like, "Oh shit," and he just kind of like turned around and like kept going. But
yeah, because the Tramps, nothing. Like, and Gabby, he's an old guy, and he had some health problems, and like literally he's like looking right up at me. I'm like, what do I do? I'm like, help him up, get back on the stage. I don't know if he broke his glass or something. It's crazy. Yeah.
No, I mean, it's those things happen. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's great. I mean, you named a lot of great bands. The Drowns, I know their star is definitely rising, and I still haven't seen them live, but I've heard the music. It is really good. Last question for you, and I know that this is like a super loaded question, but if you had to name 5 albums that you would want to be on a desert island with, what do you think that they would be?
What's the climate on this desert island?
Let's
Describe
say
this desert island to me.
let's say it's like it's like Hawaii, you know, but it's a deserted island, you know, and
I've
you
got
have a CD
electricity.
player or a record player.
Okay, awesome. Ah, man, I'd have to go with the mix. Okay. But I kind of thinking about albums that have stuck with me over the years. Like there's certain albums that, I'm sure you're the same way. You just kind of go back to and go back to. And some stick, some don't. I got a lot of albums. My first show ever was DOA. I was in 8th grade, saw them at the Whiskey, so I would have to go with Hardcore E1, classic. Thankfully, they're still playing today. The Adolescence, the Blue album, self-titled album, sticks with me. Oh man, how about kind of the Bad Religion Best of record? What is that? All Ages.
That's a great record. Yeah,
great record. The Swing Utters. Is this cheating if I pick a best of record?
No.
No. The Swing Utters Best of record that came out a couple of years ago. There's a great selection of tunes on it. I might take the Drowns, Under Tension with me. That one is stuck with me. I think Rev, the singer, sent that to me maybe a year before it came out. I've been listening to it pretty constantly since. Great record. And that might be 5. I'm going to throw a 6th one in there because I'm going to say Iron Maiden, Live After Death.
Okay, nice.
Metal in there.
Metal, but that's good.
And to be clear, the vinyl version, which had the 4th side, which didn't show up on the original CD, because my first metal show was Iron Maiden. I think I saw them in 1985, and it's kind of and that record was actually recorded on that tour. Not the show I was at, but I think Long Beach, or 3 of the 4 sides were great. One of my favorite live records for sure.
Nice. Well, shoot, Alan, it's been.
Can I throw 10 more records in there? No. I already cheated.
Why not?
No, I'm kidding.
Well, I was gonna say, Alan, it's been really nice to talk to you, and thanks for just kind of giving us a glimpse at what your world is and like what you do. For anyone who's interested in checking out his pictures, he's got a website. We'll link that in the comments, and you can check out his work. But definitely, once shows get back, to happening, I'm sure we'll see more of your work out there. But give him a follow on social media. He's posting stuff, and we'll talk to you real soon, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Andy. And don't forget New Noise Magazine and the Vinyl District as well. They do great stuff, even without me. So give them a follow. All right, cheers, buddy. I hope to see you at a show very soon-ish.
I hope so, too.
Cheers.
Take care, man.
All right, bye.
And so much of that becomes like, oh, did you see my cat?
I did. Just his butt.
Yeah, she's walking around, but